Have you discovered the Enneagram yet? This was life-changing for me on a personal and professional level. The Enneagram is a personality test, a little bit more robust than the Myers-Briggs when it comes to how we relate to others. How do you relate? This is important for you in your leadership, but also in group work, in relationships that are personal and intimate. It's a huge deal. And for a lot of us that are identifying ourselves as leaders or entrepreneurs, this can really help us understand our edges or the challenges that come with our personality. So I want to start by giving you a very quick overview of the 9 types in the Enneagram. No one type is better than the others. All of them have their unique strengths and challenges. The type 1 is the perfectionist. Those are my people. Perfectionists are, as they sound, they are people who are black and white thinkers. They want to do things a certain way. That can lead to some rigidity when it comes to leadership and the work that they might choose to do. On the positive, they're very predictable and they're very dependable, which is helpful in the workplace. Type 2 for the Enneagram is the helper. Very much exactly as it sounds, someone who gets a lot of value out of helping others. In their worst form, they need to be needed. And so their biggest challenge is boundaries. How do they say no? How do they make sure they take care of themselves from a self-care lens before helping others? So our helpers traditionally and naturally are falling into helping professions. Therapists and social workers, doctors and nurses, caseworkers, nonprofit leaders. Type 2 Enneagram folks most likely are in helping professions. So this is something to think about. Strengths: they love helping others, they're very collaborative. Challenges: boundaries. Type 3, the achievers. These are your typical CEOs, the people who have a very impressive resume. They built successful businesses left and right. They're dependable. They're pretty predictable in the sense of their success. What do you think their challenge would be? Well, for type 3s, they're workaholics, and so sometimes their relationships suffer. Maybe now they're not seeing their family as often. Maybe now their spouse or partner is saying, I'm not happy because I hardly see you. So for those type 3 folks, the strength is they're very impressive. They're very much about making a difference and having a really impressive resume, but not so impressive in their relationships unless they give them some TLC. Your type 4s are your creatives, your artists. Very much the people who want to go deeper in their emotions, people who want to express themselves. They hate small talk. They'd rather take a deep dive into deeper conversation. Things about life, death, philosophical conversations. They hate talking about the weather. So your type 4 creatives are people around you that are very artistic, they're expressive, they have big emotions, which can be a strength and a challenge. Maybe now they're having a hard time regulating in the workplace because they're feeling such big emotions. Maybe they're having a hard time collaborating with others because of that. Again, this is just a brief overview, so I definitely want you to check this out at a deeper level, but those are the first 4 types. Type 5 is your researcher. This person's very logical, they're usually very scientific. This might be your engineer as a generalization, your scientist in your life, someone who's very much about like the black and white. They also are very much about making sure that they know what they're doing. They want to be an expert in whatever they've decided to focus on. That could be everything from an expert in dog grooming, to an expert in science, to an expert in chemistry, to an expert in some other profession. And so your type 5s are very much about the logic behind things and very scientific that way. With that comes the challenge again of being a little bit more introverted. Maybe they have a hard time being in the spotlight. They pretty much like to be at home. So these are things to think about for the type 5s that might be in your life. Type 6 are the anxious loyalists. These are folks that are very loyal to people, to their workplace, but they also have a challenge when it comes to making sure that they're coming out authentically. Their anxiety prevents this. Their anxiety creates analysis paralysis. So your type 6 folks are going to be people who are very loyal to a job. Maybe they're in it for 15, 20 years, but they're also always wondering if they're putting out enough, if they're contributing enough, if they're loyal enough. So with that challenge comes a lot of anxiety and possibly some burnout. In their best form, once you get past their barriers of the anxiety, they're loyal to you for life. Whether you're their employer, their partner, their friend. Type 6 folks are really good at staying loyal. That's one of their strengths, and depending on how you look at it, could be one of their weaknesses. Type 7s are your Peter Pan storytellers. They're very charismatic, they're very engaging. They're the person you want to invite on a road trip if you could, because they're just so fun to be around. They are charismatic to the point of drawing people towards them. They're very good at socializing. The challenge is commitment, because they don't really want to grow up, which is that Peter Pan syndrome kind of idea. They have a hard time with commitment. Maybe they're bouncing around to different jobs. Maybe they're not settling down. Maybe they're not committed to a partner or relationship at this point. So even though they're charismatic, they're hard to nail down, whether it comes to employer or a relationship. That's just one of their challenges. Your type 8s are your bosses. Very loud, they can be very rigid at times. They are the ones who might say it's my way or the highway in their most unbalanced form. So this is someone that you want to work alongside and recognize that they have big emotions and very big passion about their work, and they might create conflict to create intimacy. That's one of their challenges. It's just one. Your type 9s are your last type, which is your mediator. Mediators are exactly what they sound like. They're people who want everyone to be happy. Their whole job and energy they put forth is to make sure everyone is good and doing well. So they don't really have a voice for themselves. They're so busy helping others in that kind of helper realm, kind of like our 2s, that they don't have a voice. And this can lead to some resentment. This can lead to concerns for their own health and well-being because they're not speaking up. They don't feel like they need to, and they'd rather focus on others. So again, this is a very broad overview of the 9 types of the Enneagram. For further information on these 9 types, I highly recommend going to the EnneagramInstitute.com or checking out the Ennea app and taking the quiz to see which type you might relate with. Why is this important when it comes to leadership and the work that we're doing? Well, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, this was life-changing for me, eye-opening even. Because what they tell you is when you find your type, you're very proud of the strengths and you're very ashamed of the challenges. The challenges are things you want to kind of hide from others. You don't really want those to be public facing. So knowing our edges, knowing our challenges can really help us have work-life balance. If you identify as a type 1 example, perfectionist, what does it look like to have better balance there? If you identify as a 5, very logical, how do you have more connection to your emotions? These are some ideas of why the Enneagram matters. Of course, take a deeper dive, check this out for yourself. I know it'll be life-changing for you as it was for me. Apply this to employers. This is coming up in the job force. Apply this to your home life. How can you make your relationships better? The world is your oyster. Check out the Enneagram and take a deeper dive to see how to make those relationships even more powerful and impactful.